What happens when a haunted location is filled with more than ghosts and goblins? And then we travel to Africa to take a look at a controversial tradition that has lasted centuries. Is there a balance between preserving the culture and saving lives? And then we take a look at the story of a young boy out for a walk. He thought he was just going to enjoy nature. Instead, he came to realize the real beauty lies in the super nature. Like supernatural? Today, yeah, we got it, Jason. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing, and I hope you guys have some awesome plans for the weekend. I'm going to go see the new Naked Gun movie tonight, so I'm really excited about that. But something else I'm excited about, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone get on your feet and give it up for one of our live stream contributors, HP 720cc. Woohoo! Yeah, yeah, it's a printer. It's a printer on a dolly cart. Self-propelling dolly cart. HP 720cc donated some money during the live stream, I think. Right? It's also possible that I was trying to connect via Bluetooth to a printer nearby and I accidentally wrote it down, but I'm pretty sure HP 720cc donated some money, and that is why it is going to be our captain or pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially, if you guys are not an inanimate object used to print documents, that's totally fine. It really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show go. We have a jam-packed episode, so HP, let's go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to toss you an oar, and everyone climb on board the Dead Rabbit rowboat as we somehow try to figure out how a printer is going to row us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way out to Ashland, Oregon. Oh, splash. Oh, sparks are shooting off everywhere. We didn't unplug them. We all get electrocuted. We're ghosts now. We're headed all the way out to Ashland, Oregon. Now, we were here on yesterday's episode where we profiled 3 ghosts, but I also say several times in that episode, like, I started recording it at 11 o'clock at night, and I was really, really tired. The episode didn't get finished, uploaded until around 3 in the morning. I was totally exhausted, and as I was editing it, I left out a key part of it. The last episode was talking about ghosts in Lithia Park, which is in Ashland, Oregon. But the one thing I wanted to highlight, and I mentioned it in the beginning, in the intro of the episode, I go, what happens when a haunted location has more than ghosts, or something like that. As I'm editing it, I go, I didn't even say that part. I just talked about the ghosts. Anyways, this is what I thought was really interesting. If you go to Lithia Park in Ashland, Oregon, there's 3 ghosts that are known to haunt the area, but this is interesting, and I see this from time to time. You know, I'm researching paranormal stuff all the time now, and I've always been researching the paranormal, always had an interest in it ever since I was a little kid, like most of you guys too, right? A lot of this interest starts when we're young. But when you're consuming huge amounts of it, you start to notice patterns you might not have noticed before. Let's take a look at this. There was a group of people who wanted to visit Lithia Park late one night, because that is the time where you're more likely to notice a ghost. You go during the day and there's a bunch of people walking around, you may not know there's a ghost there. You just think it's a normal guy. It's a normal guy. He doesn't have his head, blood spurting out. You're like, it's just one of those performance artists I've heard so much about. You go at night, you see a weirdo standing in the bushes. You go, that's probably a ghost. Or it could be someone else looking for love. It could be a cruiser. But anyways, my point is that you go at night. It's spookier, especially if you're in the spooky side of ghost hunting. More likely to notice a ghost at night. But I do believe a lot of ghosts appear during the day. We just don't notice them. There was a group of people who were going to the park at night, and they had their GPS directing them to where to enter the park. They're driving in the car. The GPS directed them to enter near the back of the park. I go, oh, okay, this might be where people normally enter, which would technically make it the front, but whatever. We're not going to quibble with the GPS unit. They pull up to the back of the park. They get there. They're out walking, and they're there for the ghost hunting aspect of it, but in very short order, they start to get creeped out. Because they begin to all hear, this whole group begins to hear what sounds like someone walking behind them. But every time they turned around, there was nobody there. And this kept continuing, and it just kind of creeped him out. Now, I've been on a lot of ghost hunts myself, and even though you're going to experience something paranormal, experience something spooky, once the spooky starts, it is easy to get disturbed and just want to leave. You may go there because you want to see what's going to happen, but once something happens, it's the same type of thing when you're out at a bar and a guy wants to start a fight. But once the fight starts, he goes, "Oh, I didn't know that this guy was actually going to beat me up. I thought I was just going to say a bunch of stuff and he would back down and I'd look cool. I didn't realize I was going to get my face slammed into the bar counter." So they leave. They're not there very long. They get back to their car. They drive away. Now, the next morning, they go, "Oh, let's go back there and see kind of what that place was like during the day." Now they're all super brave and they're all like, "And after this, we'll go to a bar and I'll talk to someone 2 sizes bigger than me. Tell him what a lunk he is." They go back to the park during the day. And they put in the exact same address into the GPS unit, but this time it took them to the front of the park, the correct entrance. And they thought that was a little weird, but that could be a GPS glitch. However, they did then go to the back of the park where the GPS had previously taken them, but they could not find that section of the park again. Even driving around and going, "No, I'm pretty sure we took this road. No, I'm pretty sure, I swear, we made a turn here. That's how we got to the park." Not only did the GPS send them to a different entrance, driving around in that same general vicinity where they were the night before, they could not find a place to enter the park where they had last night. Now, this is something that I have started to see pop up. It's not really common, but it's way more common than I would have thought. You think, this is a haunted location. It has ghosts. And that is the phenomenon. But we do see, there's more stories, and I can't really think of them off the top of my head. I'd love to put the episodes in the show notes, but I just know we've covered it before, of people experiencing ghostly activity and another interdimensional component also taking place. We've covered stories about people traveling through dimensions, people mistakenly taking a path down a dirt road and finding... What was that one story I really liked where the dad and the son were walking down this road they'd been down before, but this time it had a turn and they took it and they ended up walking by this abandoned house with this statue of a Polygon Dog. And it filled both the father and the son with such intense terror, they were afraid that this dog was going to attack them. And then on their trip back, the house wasn't there and the dog wasn't there and nothing was there. They could not find that location again, even though they had just been by there. We've covered a lot of stories like that. The 2 kids out in the woods and they find that house. It's like the middle of the woods and then all of a sudden, perfectly manicured grass, a white house, an estate, really, just there, plopped down in the middle of the woods. We cover a lot of stories like that. Those don't have ghosts. And we cover a lot of stories about ghosts that don't have an interdimensional element. But every so often, and it is quite rare, the 2 collide, like this story. They entered the park in an entrance that is not accessible any other time. If they had shown up a week before or a week after, they probably would have put in the numbers to the GPS and it would have taken them to the front. But on that particular night, they were able to access a part of the park that no one else could. It adds an extra layer to the ghost story. That's what I wanted to talk about yesterday, but I was so tired, I forgot. And I was looking at my notes as I was editing the episode. I was like, dang it! Creepy. What happens when there are more than ghosts at a haunted location? Terrifying. Terrifying story. Just adds an extra level of danger to being a paranormal researcher. What if this group hadn't turned around? Would they have ever been able to find their way out of Lithia Park? They may have entered through a new entrance that only existed in this moment in time, but if they had dilly-dallied too long in the park that night, they may have never been able to find that exit or any other exit out. HP 720cc, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the Hare hovercraft. Everyone climb on board this as this printer locks into our interface and prints us out of Ashland, Oregon, all the way to South Africa. We're headed out to South Africa, and we're going to take a look at a ceremony. It actually very recently took place. This happens every year, and while I was doing research for this story, one was going on. Now, I wasn't there. Right? I didn't actually buy a ticket and go into South Africa and be a part of the ceremony or even watch. It's actually done in the utmost secrecy. And if the participants ever reveal too much information about what goes on, they can be beaten or even killed. And this is a ceremony that's existed for centuries. It's called the Uwal-Uko. And it's performed by the XHOSA, which is a ethnic group in South Africa. And they've been doing this for centuries, and it's one of those rituals, one of those ceremonies that denotes when you are no longer a boy, you are a man. And you can opt to not do this. You have the ability to say, you know what, I don't want to have any part of this ceremony. They're not going to force you to do it. We'll get to that in a second, but generally speaking, they're not going to force you to do it. However, if you don't do it, you lose some rights in this culture. You can't sit on any sort of councils or anything like that. So you can choose not to do it, but it's going to diminish the power that you have in that area. I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming as well that it may limit your economic opportunities because it does show that you are now a man. It's very, very harsh. It's a very, very harsh ceremony. It lasts around 3 weeks, and you learn all of these survival skills. And it does seem that there's a lot of stuff built into it to make it dangerous. You have to go 7 days with no water. I mean, that'll kill you. You're like, oh, Jason, is that why it's controversial? You mentioned it. We'll get to that. This is part of it. You go 7 days without water. The only food you get is half-boiled maize or corn. And, you know, there's been documentaries made about this. People have been interviewed on it. Nelson Mandela himself not only did this ritual, this ceremony, but he would talk to other world leaders about it. He held this whole thing in very high esteem because it does show, it's basically supposed to mimic the hardships of life. So if you can survive these 3 weeks, you can survive anything. They say that you get this half-boiled maize and you're eating it. Well, here's the thing. You're not really eating it. You are, because that's all you have to eat. But it's only half-boiled. So a lot of times the participants, their jaws are constantly sore because they're chewing this tough corn all day long just to get a little bit of food in you. It does sound intense. It does sound intense. And the thing is that people die doing this. People die doing this. While I was researching the story, like I said, the 2025 ceremonies were going on. 39 guys died. There was an article written in Africa Geographic by Richard Bullock, and he goes, listen, let me read the quote, because I thought this was interesting. Quote, "The seclusion, suffering, and pain represent the trials of life. It is the process that matters, not what is said. It is a test of personal character and fortitude. Of course, no boy should needlessly die. But I wonder if the XHOSA people would place such a high value on the ceremony if there were zero chance of fatalities," unquote. You come out of this and you did not die, you are a man. You survived all of that. Welcome. Welcome to adulthood, my son. But that's not why we're talking about it on Dead Rabbit Radio. I mean, that's fascinating, but if you have this ceremony that goes on, and you don't have to do it, but it's highly encouraged, and it's looked down upon if you don't do it. So, of course, a criminal element steps in. Generally speaking, you know, I was reading a couple different sources on this. I saw that generally the age that people do it is 18. I saw other sources that said when you do this, you're 16. But what has been happening in South Africa, and it's been happening for a while, is that criminals, gangs of people will be driving around and grabbing boys as young as 12 years old off the street and say, you are doing the ceremony. We're going to administer the ceremony, not the leaders of your community. We are. And then they'll send a bill to the parents saying, hey, we took your kid. We didn't give him any water for 7 days. We made him eat half-cooked corn. And he's a man now. You got to pay us money. And because criminals are involved, sometimes the kids are like, I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. First off, they're way too young. I mean, having someone who's 18 or even 16 want to be part of these ceremonies, physically they can take it better. Mentally they can take it better. The kids who resist, you know, you're outside playing soccer, and the next thing you know, you're getting dragged into the back of a van, taken to one of these criminally run ceremonies. You may refuse, you may be scared, you just want to go back home. Unlike in the real ceremonies, the criminals will beat and sometimes kill the kids. Very, very interesting, right? Wherever there's any sort of hole a criminal will slide into. So you have this ceremony that is required, to be part of society. And criminals go, hey, how can we get a piece of that? How can we get a piece of that? And they've started stealing kids and making them do the ritual at a younger age and then billing the parents. Very interesting, but still, the part that makes all of this controversial and the part that makes the criminal element even more terrifying is really the most notable and dangerous part of the ritual. It's like a lot of times when you talk about this ceremony, they won't talk about all the stuff I talked about first. They'll talk about this, and every headline has this word in the headline. It's all they ever talk about. I was just doing it backwards. A key part of this ritual is, imagine you're an 18-year-old dude, and you're uncircumcised. You're like, oh no. Oh no, yeah. If I was 18 years old and someone goes, oh, you're going to get circumcised now, I wouldn't be terrified of that. It would be the scariest thing in the world. At a hospital, right? If I was having it done at a hospital, it would be terrifying. Hey, son, you turned 18 today. You got to sign up for selective service, and we're taking you down to the doctor's office. We're going to remove some of the skin off of your penis. They don't do it at a hospital. This is a ceremony they perform. And again, some articles would say that the tools they used to remove the foreskin, I saw some articles that just said they perform these circumcisions. Other times they said they use spearheads. That's the most unwieldy weapon. Spears aren't known for their precision. Right? It's like a 6-foot long stick with a little piece of metal on the end of it. Guy's walking around. He's just kind of knocking stuff over. It's not a scalpel. But even then, one article said that they use spearheads and razor blades. So like an X-Acto knife. You're like, wow, can this get any worse? It can. It can. Trust me. One article specified, so here's the thing. You have this being performed as a ceremony, but remember the criminal gangs, they don't care. They really don't care. They just need to get this done. So they will also use spearheads and razor blades. But the article I was reading about them specified old spearheads. Right? So I was like, what, has it been used in a battle? Was it used to take down an elephant? And now you're using it on me? Like, you have money. My parents are going to pay you. You kidnapped me. Go out and buy a nice new X-Acto knife, please. Not that old spearhead. Invest in some better technology. Now, even in the legitimate ceremonies, there is a risk factor involved in cutting the foreskin off of an adult. But with the criminals, it's really bad. Right? You're like, oh, I'm sure the one thing the criminals will get right is the post-surgery procedures. Nope. In 2024, now these stats are a combination of the legitimate ceremonies and the criminal ceremonies, but most of the, people die in both. And sometimes what they die of, dehydration, obviously, is a big death factor. But also things like sepsis. Because you get this infection in your blood. And again, this is more on the criminal side of it. The sepsis, because they're not cleaning their instruments, they're using old spearheads. And I'm sure they're lined up like an assembly line. Like nothing's getting cleaned. Sepsis, gangrene of the penis is killing a bunch of these dudes. And another big problem, right there, you're like, well, that's the biggest problem possible. Unfortunately, it's bad, yeah, right? You don't want to die of gangrene that you got from an illegal circumcision. But the other problem is penis amputations. Now, you go, well, Jason, how many people are doing this? Remember, this is a huge cultural thing. When they have this, I said, what, at the beginning, 39 people died? Back in 2024, 93 people died during the ceremony, and that includes the legitimate ones and the criminal ones. 11 men had to have their penis amputated because the infection was so bad, and hundreds more were hospitalized. So you go, oh, it's not too bad. That's because you're not one of the 11. You're like, 11, that's not too bad. What's the population of South Africa? You're only saying that because you're not one of the 11. One is too many. Penis amputations. In fact, I learned 2 facts while I was looking this up. There's a term called auto-amputation, where it just falls off because it's so diseased. You're getting ready for your hot dog cookout. You're like, oh, hot dogs, the favorite way I love them. Put in a microwave. Cook them in a microwave and watch them split open. Ah, yes. Honey, where's the ketchup? I'm super hungry. Oh, I'm going to listen to this new episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. Auto-amputation, it'll just fall off. Which at that point, it could be a blessing in disguise, right? You've already had one bad procedure, and now the doctors are like, well, we're going to have to cut it off now. And you're like, oh, I don't want that to happen. And then it, boop, just falls off, hits the ground. Auto-amputation, they can just fall off. Since 1995, there's been an estimated 1,000 penis amputations in South Africa. This is the other factoid I learned. You're like, don't share them with us, Jason, it's okay to keep some knowledge to yourself. Did you know South Africa has become one of the greatest countries when it comes to needing penis transplants? I know grammatically that probably wasn't the best way to say that, but I couldn't think of another way. Let me try. Never mind, I'm just going to keep talking. You're like, I get it. They need a lot of penis transplants. Yes, South Africa, considering its size especially, is one of the countries that has the most demand for penis transplants. In fact, the very first successful penis transplant took place in South Africa. Back in 2015, that was the very first time they were ever able to successfully... Now that I think about it, where'd they get it from? Where would you get the donor penis from? I mean, I guess there's a bunch of them around. There's just one rolling on the floor through the doctor's office. The guy's like, that just fell off of that other patient. You want me to put it on you? You're like, nah, that's horrible. I'm sure, like, when you do organ harvesting, you get the eyes and the liver and the heart, lungs, kidneys, stuff like that. But I guess the movie Crank 2 High Voltage was true. I guess they probably do take off penises as well. So it's somebody's job. I mean, apparently, right? Apparently there is a demand for penis transplants. In 2015, a man had the very first penis transplant successful. You gotta think, what were the ones that weren't successful? It's like, oh man. Twice in one day just falls off. Auto amputation. The man who had the most successful penis transplant, not the most successful, but the first successful, before the transplant, we don't know what it was after the transplant, but before the transplant, all that was left of his original penis was 1 centimeter. Luckily for that guy, it worked, and there is a constant demand. Isn't that crazy, though? It's funny because it is, like, I understand the different levels of it. The criminals trying to make a buck, I mean, obviously that's morally bankrupt. It's absolutely terrible, but you understand, like, that's what criminals do. They prey on people. And the idea of it being a manhood ceremony and that it being dangerous go hand in hand, that makes sense as well. And the idea of having circumcision, right? A lot of countries circumcise children when they're born. In other countries, never circumcise people. And really, it's a personal decision. When you're a baby, you can't make the decision. In this culture, you can choose not to have it done, but again, it limits what you can do in society. But I mean, I could get all of the different pieces. And, you know, the people who are against circumcision, I understand that as well. I understand all the pieces, but when you do add on that element of auto amputations and gangrene of the genitals and horrible, horrible stuff, that's when it goes from simply an interesting look at society, different societies, different cultures and beliefs, to something bordering on a horror movie. Truly. Like, just imagine that being a possibility. I mean, if I said, hey, I'm going to make a horror movie, you want to be in it? Your best answer should be no. Nope. You're directing it? Nope. You're filming it in an abandoned warehouse? Double no. Absolutely not. Imagine if I pitched you a horror movie. I got a horror movie about a bunch of guys who are kidnapped off the street and tied up in a warehouse, and they're forcibly circumcised with a spear. I mean, you're like, no, like, what would be You're like, that'd be the scariest movie ever, and I don't want any part of it. It's like the scariest thing in the world to think about. You get kidnapped and someone breaks out an X-Acto knife and says, I'm going to make you a man. But crazy stuff. I do like looking at, interesting ceremonies and cultures and stuff like that. But I don't really talk about it a lot on Dead Rabbit Radio. This one had a lot of interesting elements of stuff that I didn't know about. Plus the everyone dying because their dick is falling off. I mean, really, every headline, when you look this up, focuses on that part of it because it is so shocking. But I understand how the ceremony started. It's just too bad the criminals have gotten a hold of it and turned it into something even more dangerous and diabolical than it ever should have been. Longtime listener of the show and personal friend of mine. He goes by the name Grumplesnitch or something like that. He gave me a fake name and it's like the hardest name to remember, but Grumplesnitch, he had a little baby. He's a dad for the very first time. He sent me over a photo of the baby. It's pretty funny looking. Not the kid, right? Not the kid. The kid looks like a baby. The baby looked exhausted. And I thought, you know what? That must be a really tiring process to be born. Dude, I just thought of $1 million idea. Drinking this Diet Pepsi here. You build a room. You build like a big, comfy room that has one entrance, and it's all like warm and stuff, and it's supposed to simulate the womb. It's supposed to simulate the womb when we were babies. And you charge people to go in there, and they don't leave for 9 months. Isn't that a prison? Isn't that what you just kind of described those criminals were doing? No. Because I was thinking of it. They do have those ceremonies, that's probably the wrong word, but it's called rebirthing, where people have to push their way through mats. Like people, it's a bunch of guys named Matt be like, hey, what's up? You gotta make your way through the crowd. No, you take these mats and you kind of press them against people, and like foam mats, like MMA mats, and you babies all doing front kicks, Superman punch. You make your way through the mats and the pressure, and it feels like being born again. We covered it a long time ago on the show. It's actually super controversial because a young girl died doing it, Candance Newmaker. And I'm actually surprised I remember that name, like just right off the top of my head. But it's a horrifying story. But no, this isn't horror. This isn't going to involve anyone dying. But you pay me money, and I put you inside of a very spacious womb-shaped room, and you have food. It's all coming through a big tube. It's like I'm going to stab this tube right into your belly button. You're like, wait, what? Nope, no take backs. You're already in the womb room. But no, you just deliver them hamburgers. Stuff, they're all sitting there, and a hand is reaching through the birth canal with a bag of DoorDash. No. See, you guys are thinking too much of the small details. I'm talking big picture here. You pay to be in this womb for 9 months, and you can do whatever you want. There's not much to do. You're like, can I bring books? I was like, yeah, one or two. It'll take you a couple months to read a book, right? You're like, what? No. Can I get a television? You're playing a Game Boy. No, you're supposed to be in the womb. You're supposed to just chill in this giant, comfy room for about 9 months. You're a premium kicking you out of all day. Your check bounced. Get out. You hang out in the room, and you just, like, it's just the calmness. You know, you're sitting in this womb. Maybe I'll be playing Enya. I'll have a speaker pressed up against it, and you'll be sitting there and just kind of relaxing. And, of course, there'd probably be a toilet in there, but it would be disguised as something. Maybe it's disguised as, like, a what? All the furniture is tumor-shaped. Like, this womb is riddled with disease. I want my money back. Nope. I'll see you in about 8 months and 29 days. Maybe the details I gotta get right, but I think people would pay a lot of money to be, maybe not 9 months, right? Like, just maybe make it an hour, maybe. But I think, yeah, if people could go back to be in the womb for a while and just chill, just relax, even though it is super hot in there. It's like 98 degrees in a womb, apparently. I mean, it's been 48 years since I've been inside of one, but I would assume it's super hot in there. But the baby doesn't know any better, so he just thinks it's normal. Then he's born, and all of a sudden he's in a 73-degree hospital room. That sounds amazing. Babies are dope. I don't have a baby, they terrify me, but at the same time, imagine experiencing everything for the first time. You can do that too for the low, low price of $10,000. You can live in a womb that I've built. It's in an empty warehouse. And while you're in there, I'm all pitching movie scripts to you. I was like, I got a perfect horror movie. Some idiot crawls into a homemade womb in an abandoned warehouse. What an idiot. Then one night, a man with an X-Acto knife sneaks in through the birth canal. Okay, let's move on to the next story here. HP 720, we're leaving behind South Africa. Why don't you fly us all the way out to Australia, mate? Headed all the way out to Australia. We're about to meet a young man. We don't have his real name. We're going to call him Sam. He's 8 years old. We don't have an exact location either yet. Because this is one of the stories that I've been teasing this whole week that plays into almost a Australian cinematic universe, the ACU, as we may call it. We talked a little bit about it on a Classics episode, I think. Maybe it was Tuesday's episode. I don't remember. It's been a long week. But anyways, Sam, for this story, Sam, he's 8 years old, and he said, one day I was not having a good day. I was really, really sad. I was sad a lot, but on this particular day, depressed. Now, this wasn't a good day for a walk because a heavy storm was rocking this area. Rain was coming down, gloomy. But when you're depressed, sometimes that stuff doesn't even matter. You're just in such a dump. The whole sky could open up and drown you. You want to think twice about going outside. So I decided to go for a walk. Maybe some fresh air would cheer this sad little boy up. So he walks out of his house and he's walking around his family's property. And he said, on his family's property, there was this ravine. And he's walking through the ravine just alone with his thoughts. He's walking through this ravine. The storm is still happening. Heavy raindrops falling on his head. The ravine, usually dry, now has a trickle of water. The beginnings of a river forming due to the rain. When all of a sudden, he hears a voice call out. He looks up and he sees above the ravine, like he's in the middle of it. He's on like the valley little part of the ravine. He hears someone call out and he looks up, and on the top of one of the sides of the ravine, where there are some rocks there, he sees a teenage girl sitting on the rocks. He doesn't know who she is. He's never seen her before. And she's waving to him. She had called out to him, "Hey!" Now she's waving and he looks up and she shouts, Hey, come up here. Come up here and sit with me. It's dangerous down there. And that really confuses Sam because this isn't dangerous. I mean, he is in a ravine. It's not like just a tiny little gully. It's quite high on both sides, but not impossibly steep. He's been in this area before. He doesn't understand why it's dangerous, but he's 8, and he sees a teenage girl shouting for him to come up, and as far as he's concerned, that's an authority figure. It's an adult compared to him. So he's kind of like looking around, he's thinking, what do you mean dangerous down there? She's my elder, I should do what she says. So Sam climbs out of the ravine and walks over to the rock that she's sitting on and sits down next to her. The girl looks at Sam and pats him on the head. And then she says, "It only gets better from here. Just don't think about it so much." Before Sam can ask, "Who are you? What are you doing here? This is my family's property. Are you a member of my family?" Before he can ask who she is, or more importantly, what does any of that mean? You just said, "It gets better from here, just don't think about it so much." What does that mean? That's the more important question. He's processing what she just said. He's trying to figure out who she is. But before he can even ask that question, a loud crashing sound echoes through the ravine. Sam looks over, and right where he would have been had he continued walking, there was a landslide. The storm had loosened the soil, as well as the roots of a tree, and both rock and tree crashed into the ravine, right where he would have been. When the tree crashed into the ravine, it was so shocking to Sam. He jumped off the rock and he screamed. It startled him. It was a mixture of excitement and fear, is what Sam said. Watching the spectacle, watching a landslide, a giant tree smash into the earth. But at the same time, he realized he dodged death. And he knew the only reason why he was still alive was because the girl told him to get out of the ravine. And while he's sitting there and he's processing everything that just happened, everything's happening lightning fast, he turns to the girl and she's gone. The teenage girl he had never seen before and would never see again had vanished. Sam now stood alone, looking down at the ruined ravine as the storm continued to cover the earth in rain. Sam said, this was an interesting quote, he said, quote, "I ended up going home even sadder." I mean, listen, depression is like that, right? But you were hoping, right? You're like, oh, maybe he felt better that he dodged death. Depression doesn't always work like that, but, quote, "I ended up going home even sadder, but I've never forgotten how warm her hand was on my head, or how she sounded kinder than anyone I've ever met since." Someone asked him, he posted this online, and someone asked, did things ever get better? Because that's what she had said. And he goes, honestly, things got substantially worse for a while. But nowadays, life's not too bad. So a multi-level story to kind of look at. Guardian angel. Is that who she was? Were her words of comfort a prophecy that things would get better? Or was she just being nice? Because that is something that people will say. And I mean, I think we all believe it at some basic level, but we're not soothsayers when we tell someone, things will get better. You just got to keep holding on. Was she a guardian angel? She definitely saved his life. The fact that she vanished into thin air makes you think she's not just a biological human passing through, unless it's a time traveler. But we have two different things. She saved his life, yes. She vanished into nothingness, yes. But the advice that she gave him, was that just something we say to help people who are down and out? Or was she predicting the future, that things would get better? It's kind of an interesting thing, right? If I said it, you wouldn't go, well, then that's going to be 100% because Jason said it. But if someone appeared out of nowhere and said it, you'd give it a little more credence. This story also, though, is interesting for another reason, and this is how we're going to wrap up this episode. The person who posted this story online also posted about another couple really weird encounters. Like, this is quite unusual. We have covered guardian angels before on the show, but this seems to stand out. So I did question, is this story true? Like I do with everything. And I started looking around, and this guy has posted other stories, and they're very odd. And that's usually a sign that people are making it up. A lot of people have one crazy story. Some people have two or three. But sometimes if someone keeps having the same once-in-a-lifetime paranormal story, it does start to sound fake. So this guy posted another story that we're going to cover on Monday's episode, where he met a man who had the head of a dingo and was in control of a dingo pack. And I read it and I go, well, that sounds unbelievable. Which kind of made me think, is this story made up as well? And I probably would have let it all rest there. I probably would have just put these stories, typed them up, and filed them away somewhere, had I not tried to contact Sam. Had I not reached out to Sam to get some clarification on these stories, because despite the fact that they sounded unbelievable, there was something about them that made me want to take a second look. And I never reach out to people unless I really think they're in need. My house is haunted, I need help now, type of thing. Generally speaking, out of 1,484 episodes of this show, I've probably reached out maybe 2 or 3 times before doing an episode. I reached out to Sam to get some clarification. And honestly, because I thought if I could get a little more information from him, I could tell whether or not he was making it up. Instead, I got an email back from an unrelated account telling me to mind my own business and to let these stories never be told. I'm pretty sure I talked about this on Tuesday's episode, but it's so bonkers. So we're going to talk about the dingo-headed man of Australia. Next episode. Now, I will say this, if something happens to me this weekend, you should find any dingo trainers, have the forensic look to find dingo paw prints around me. Maybe I was killed by the pack to silence the truth. It's absolutely bizarre. I think this story's interesting on its own. The dingo head story's absolutely bonkers. But the fact that some guy out of the blue emailed me and said, don't talk about the dingo man. And I'll say this, these stories were posted 4 years ago. So it's not like someone was pulling a prank last weekend. This story and the dingo man were posted 4 years ago. So this other guy, Sam, out of the blue, got an email from me saying, hey, I'm a paranormal researcher. I had some questions about one of your stories. I've never gotten a response from Sam. I got a response from another Reddit account telling me that all the stories are fake and it needs to be left alone and Sam doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, it could just be a troll, right? But I'm going to say, tip of the hat to patience. 4 years ago was when these stories were first posted. With the weird world of paranormal research, there's a chance that it's all fake. And I probably would have thought these are interesting stories and would have covered them at some point, or maybe not. But the fact that they told me not to, and I mean, makes me think that it's some big town secret now. So anyways, that's what I'm going to talk about on the next episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. If anything happens to me, you know who to blame. Like, what? A man with a dingo head? Yeah. Somewhere in Australia. It's a crazy story. But anyways, we'll cover that next episode. The plot thickens. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal conspiracy and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys.